Hi, welcome beautiful Americans. How are you?
My girlfriend took a vacation, so I moved out and left her homeless. This isn't a story about a fight. This is a story about the coldest, quietest eviction in history. My live-in girlfriend told me she was going 600 kilometers away to visit family. She lied. She was actually on a restaurant patio with her ex. When I saw the betrayal, I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just went home, gave my landlord 60 days notice, and spent the next 2 months planning her perfect homeless surprise. If you've ever had someone betray your trust and walk all over you, hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready for a story about how one piece of paper, the lease, became the ultimate weapon of revenge. My name is Emma, but my friends call me the subject of a legend. This story happened years ago, but the sheer genius of the plan has made it immortal in my friend group. I had been living with my girlfriend, let's call her Sarah, for some time. We were on a month-to-month lease, and things hadn't been great. We were in a rough patch, the kind of stagnant period where you know things aren't working but you're too comfortable to leave. We were both unhappy, but I was the one clinging to the hope of fixing it. One morning, Sarah announced she was leaving town for a week. Family emergency, she said, or maybe a much-needed break to see my parents 600 kilometers away. Her departure was swift, her goodbye perfunctory. I felt a twinge of loneliness, but mostly I just felt drained. The moment everything changed wasn't dramatic. It was surgical. A few days after she left, I was scrolling through social media, a casual check of my feed. That's when I saw it. There was Sarah. Not 600 kilometers away with her family, but right here, in a town only a couple of hours away. She was laughing, her head thrown back, sitting on a restaurant patio. But she wasn't alone. She was with her ex-boyfriend. The air left my lungs. It wasn't just the cheating that hit me. It was the meticulous lie. Distance. The family. The complete disrespect. My body didn't burn with anger. It went cold, numb. I felt a deep, chilling sense of clarity. The relationship was over. But I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. I drove to the restaurant. I parked across the street, pulled out my phone, and snapped several photos. Clear, undeniable evidence of her betrayal. I didn't confront them. I didn't make a scene. I drove straight home, the photos burning a hole in my pocket, and the only sound in the car was the quiet hum of my newly awakened purpose. I got home and immediately checked the lease. Month to month. Required 60 days notice. And the critical detail. Only my name was on the lease. Sarah was merely an occupant, entirely without legal rights to the apartment. That day I called my landlord. Luckily, he was a good guy who respected me as a tenant. I told him I needed to move in 2 months. I explained very vaguely that my living situation was changing, and I needed to give notice immediately. He understood. My plan was set. The 60-day clock had begun. The next 2 months were an exercise in emotional control and strategic deception. This was the hardest part. Sarah came back from her trip, refreshed and happy. She was full of vague stories about her family. I had to act normal. I started mentioning couples therapy. Not because I wanted to go, but to keep her complacent, to make her think I was still invested in fixing our rough patch. I stayed emotionally distant, avoiding sex, though frankly she never offered. She would occasionally go out late, sometimes claiming she was spending the night with friends. I just smiled and said, okay. I was the picture of the accommodating, slightly naive boyfriend. Meanwhile, I found a new apartment and signed the papers. My landlord was fully on board with the plan. We worked out a system. Any prospective new tenants came by to view the apartment only when Sarah was out at work or conveniently crashing with a friend. She never suspected a thing. The 60th day arrived. I woke up early, my heart not pounding but steady and cold. I had arranged for a professional moving crew to arrive exactly at 8 a.m. They were paid well and instructed to box up only my belongings. All the furniture, all the shared kitchenware which I had bought, all my clothes and anything purchased under my name. At 8:15 a.m., the crew was a whirlwind of efficiency. Boxes were taped shut, and the apartment was rapidly emptying. Sarah came stumbling out of the bedroom, yawning, completely confused. "What is going on?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. "Why are there people in our apartment?" I stopped a moving crew member who was taking my TV and walked over to her. I held a small stack of papers. The final, crushing delivery. I laid out the copies of the photos I had taken 2 months ago. The photos of her and her ex, laughing on the patio. Her face went from confusion to shock, and then to a furious, desperate panic. She stammered, she denied, she raged. I simply cut her off with one sentence. "This is what was going on while you were supposedly visiting your family 600 kilometers away." Then, the final nail in her coffin. The landlord, who was conveniently there to supervise the move, stepped forward. He wasn't aggressive. He was merely professional. "Sarah," he said calmly, "you need to be completely out of here by midnight. The new tenants are moving in 2 days later, and I need time to tidy up the place. If your things are still here past midnight, they will be put on the curb." Her denial died in her throat. She looked wildly around the apartment. The sofa was gone. The dining table was gone. The TV, the sound system, even the rug, all gone. She was left standing in a nearly empty room, surrounded by her pitifully small pile of personal belongings. She wasn't on the lease. She had no legal standing. She had zero right to the furniture, zero right to the apartment, and zero time to find a new place to live. The look on her face was priceless, a mixture of total devastation, disbelief, and the horrifying dawning realization of the consequences of her actions. She went from being the smug victor to the homeless victim in the span of 15 minutes. I walked to the door, grabbed my final bag, and paused. I pulled out my phone and snapped one last photo. Sarah, her clothes, her toiletries, and her utter defeat, piled up in the middle of the empty main room. It was the perfect bookend to the photos I took on the patio. I walked out the door, the sound of the movers filling the silence, and never looked back. The plan, the cool execution of it, and the simple, clean cruelty of using the law against her betrayal made that moment a legend in our friend group to this day. It's easy to act on blind rage. It's hard to act with surgical precision. But the lesson here is simple. If you choose to betray someone, make sure you check the terms of your lease. Because sometimes, the most effective revenge is simply handing someone a deadline. If this story gave you that incredible sense of justice, smash that like button and tell us in the comments. What's the coldest, most calculated revenge you've ever heard of? And of course, subscribe to English Stories with Louisa for more satisfying acts of cheating karma.